Some people confuse nervous system instability with passion. They call it chemistry. They call it a spark. They call it something I've never felt before. They call it intense, magnetic, impossible to walk away from. But here's the part most people never question. What if that chemistry isn't connection? What if it's chaos? What if the butterflies, the obsession, the overthinking, the emotional highs and crashes aren't signs of love, but symptoms of instability? Because one of the most dangerous patterns in modern relationships is when someone mistakes emotional turbulence for deep compatibility. And if you don't understand this, you can spend years chasing toxic patterns, thinking you're chasing passion. Here's where it starts. She meets someone stable. He's clear, consistent, respectful, emotionally available. No games, no confusion, no disappearing, no hot and cold. And instead of feeling excited, she feels bored. Not because he lacks value, but because her nervous system has been trained to associate unpredictability with emotional intensity. This is where it gets worse. If someone's emotional blueprint was built around inconsistency, mixed signals, validation withdrawal, or chaotic attachment, peace can feel unfamiliar. And what feels unfamiliar can feel wrong. So instead of saying, "This is healthy," she may think, "This feels off. This is too easy. Something is missing." But what's missing is anxiety, and that changes everything. Because toxic dynamics often create biochemical addiction. The uncertainty creates obsession. When affection is inconsistent, attention becomes more valuable. When validation is unpredictable, the brain starts chasing it harder. This is not always love, it's often reward conditioning. The same psychological loop that keeps people attached to gambling can keep them attached to unstable relationships. Because the brain becomes addicted, not to safety, but to relief. Relief after silence. Relief after emotional distance. Relief after conflict. Relief after finally being chosen again. And that relief feels powerful. So powerful, people mistake it for chemistry. But here's the truth most men miss. If she only feels deeply attached when there's emotional chaos, she may not be connected to love. She may be connected to survival patterns. This is why some women say, "I'm used to toxic men. Nice guys feel boring. I need excitement." But often, what they call excitement is dysregulation. What they call passion is uncertainty. What they call chemistry is emotional activation. Now let's be clear, this doesn't mean she consciously wants pain. It means unresolved emotional conditioning can distort attraction. People are often drawn to what feels familiar, even when familiar is harmful. If love once meant inconsistency, consistency can feel suspicious. If affection once required earning, healthy love can feel undeserved. If chaos once created emotional peaks, stability can feel emotionally flat. And this is where men destroy themselves, trying to prove they can heal someone through consistency alone. But here's the brutal reality. You cannot compete with unresolved chaos if someone is still addicted to it. Because if peace feels foreign to her, she may sabotage it. Not because you're wrong, but because calm doesn't trigger what chaos used to. This is why some relationships become exhausting. You communicate clearly, she pulls away. You stay consistent, she loses interest. You provide safety, she creates tension. And suddenly, you start believing you need to become colder, more distant, more toxic, just to keep her attention. But here's where most men fail. They start adapting to dysfunction instead of recognizing it. They think, maybe I'm too available. Maybe I'm too nice. Maybe I need to play games. No, sometimes the issue is not your lack of toxicity. It's her attachment to instability. Now here's the deeper psychological truth. Chaos attachment often confuses intensity with intimacy. But intensity is not intimacy. Intensity can be fear. Intensity can be insecurity. Intensity can be emotional volatility. Real intimacy is different. It's safety. It's trust. It's emotional regulation. It's consistency without confusion. But to someone conditioned by chaos, that can initially feel less powerful, because peace is quieter than panic. And many people have spent so long surviving emotional storms, they don't know how to recognize calm love when it arrives. But here's where men need to go even deeper. Sometimes chaos attachment doesn't just affect who she chooses, it affects who she trusts. Because healthy love requires surrendering old defense mechanisms. And for someone shaped by emotional inconsistency, that can feel terrifying. Why? Because chaos is painful, but predictable. She knows the cycle, the hot and cold, the distance, the chase, the temporary highs, the emotional crashes. It hurts, but it's familiar. Healthy love, on the other hand, requires vulnerability without chaos, and that can feel more dangerous to an unhealed nervous system than dysfunction itself. This is why some women unconsciously test stable men. They create conflict, pull away, become emotionally confusing, not always because they want destruction, but because they are asking one hidden question. Will this eventually become pain too? And sometimes, when peace feels suspicious, they provoke instability just to return to what their nervous system understands. This is where strong men must pay attention. You are not just dating her choices, you are often confronting her conditioning. And if she has not done the internal work, she may confuse your emotional maturity with weakness, your patience with boredom, your safety with lack of chemistry. Not because you lack value, but because unresolved patterns can misread healthy masculine presence. This is why emotional self-respect matters, because love should not require you to become emotionally damaging just to feel desired. The moment you must abandon your own stability to maintain attraction, you are no longer building love, you are negotiating with dysfunction, and that price always becomes too expensive. But here's where it gets dangerous. If a man internalizes this pattern incorrectly, he may think, "She wants me to be toxic." No, not necessarily. What often happens is unresolved wounds create attraction distortions. So the solution is not becoming destructive. The solution is recognizing when someone is emotionally unavailable for healthy love. Because the wrong response is performing toxicity. The right response is protecting your own stability. If someone only values you when you withdraw, if they only chase when you detach, if they only feel chemistry when there's confusion, you are not building connection. You are feeding a damaged cycle. And damaged cycles can feel intoxicating until they destroy you. So what should men do? First, stop romanticizing being the exception. You are not here to outlove someone's unresolved trauma. Second, watch what creates attraction. Does she value peace or only react to pressure? Does she appreciate consistency or only respond to uncertainty? Does she build or destabilize? Because attraction without emotional health can become addiction disguised as romance. Third, never confuse being wanted during chaos with being valued in peace. Many people will chase what stimulates them, but very few are prepared for what actually heals them. And this is the final truth. Chemistry alone means nothing if the chemistry is built on wounds. Because not all sparks should be followed. Some sparks are fires, some are warnings, some are unresolved pain wearing the costume of passion. Healthy love often feels different than toxic attachment, not because it's weaker, but because it's safer. And people addicted to emotional roller coasters often mistake safety for boredom until chaos breaks them again. So if she misses toxic and calls it chemistry, understand what may actually be happening. She may not be chasing love. She may be chasing familiarity. And familiarity, without healing, can become self-destruction. Because the strongest connection is not the one that destabilizes your nervous system. It's the one that no longer requires survival mode to feel alive.